Welcome to the Church and Family Life podcast. We're going to talk about recovering the home for equipping and evangelism and hospitality, the hospitality commands. We've got a really inspiring family we're going to talk to, the Arterburns from Kentucky. Hope you enjoy the discussion. Well, Jason, we're going to talk about hospitality with these Arterburns.
So your reputation precedes you. Here's what I mean by that.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to your pastor about something completely unrelated to this, and he was saying, "Hey, by the way, I love the podcast. You know what you guys should do? You should do a podcast on hospitality, and you should have Gil Arterburn and a daughter or two on that podcast because they are a competitive weapon for our church." I think that actually is the phrase that he used. Here's what he meant by that. When a visitor comes to your church, he knows that they're going to be approached by the Arterburns and invited to lunch. You've never met them, you don't know them, but you want them to feel welcome to the church, so you just have them into your house.
That's so nice. Yeah, I love to hear that. So here we are. So now we're going to talk about it. We've seen it, from afar too. So and we have Gil and Summer. Hey, Summer.
Hi.
So glad you're joining your dad. I know your mother is out, maintaining the machine while you guys can sit here and talk about it. Hey, Gil, tell us about your family.
Yeah, well, I have a wonderful wife who is shuttling the children around right now, much to her delight that it was timed at the right time to avoid the cameras. But 10 children. I have my 9th grandchild on the way. So, the Lord's just blessed us. I'm one of the richest men in the world, really.
In modern evangelicalism, when church is over, the building is evacuated immediately and everybody goes. And the hospitality commands actually is a resistance to that.
Yeah. Let me read from Romans 12. This is one of the New Testament passages that talks about hospitality. It's Romans 12, verses 10 through 13. So here's what Paul writes. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love, in honor giving preference to one another, not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer, distributing to the needs of the saints, given to hospitality. So all of these things have to do with love, being kindly affectionate to the brethren, and also serving the Lord. Both of those things are mentioned at the front end of that. So how are we kindly affectionate to one another? Well, that's more than just sentimentality. There are actually practical ways in which we're supposed to demonstrate affection to one another. Hospitality is a great one. There are practical ways in which we serve the Lord, right? That's not just emotional and spiritual. We serve the Lord in practical ways. Hospitality is one of those.
Jason, I love what you said there. And as I was thinking about this, more and more just came to me. I thought about how good God was in creation. Really, He obviously is the ultimate example of hospitality, and all the, all the good gifts that He gave in the garden, and then beyond. He promised even after the fall that there would always be planting time and harvest, and that's been true, and that will, we're encouraged that will be true until the end. He provided manna for his people in the wilderness. Then all through the Old Testament, you see Abraham making a meal for those messengers. You see the Shunammite widow feeding Elijah. and so many examples, even jail. You want to think about that, how powerful a weapon. You talked about hospitality being a weapon. I guess Kyle said that. Well, there you go, right through the temple with hospitality.
Tent peg through the temple hospitality. That's a new category, Gil.
And then Jesus, right? Jesus did many miracles and teachings and healings in people's homes in the New Testament, which I never had really considered that. I was looking through Acts, and there's so many places where the church, was meeting. The church was actually meeting in people's homes. But then I thought, well, Jesus was in people's homes too. He was actually in their home. And the New Testament tells us that they said about the church, these are the men who have turned the world upside down. And they did it, without programs, without gyms, without, websites or anything like that. They did it out of people's homes.
About a dozen years ago, I wrote an article. It's on our website. We'll refer to it, "Restoring the Household for Equipping and Evangelism." And what I'm saying in that article is the home in the New Testament is a place of spiritual activity. There's teaching, there's healing, there is breaking of bread. There are all kinds of things. Even Levi, Matthew, is practicing hospitality, and Jesus is there with all of Matthew's friends. So the home needs to be recovered for equipping and evangelism and the love of God.
So 1 Timothy 3, verse 2, part of the qualifications for elders, right in the middle, hospitable. So the qualifications for elders isn't super Christianity. That's the wrong way to think of what elders have to be. It's just actually verifiably mature Christianity. That's all it is. Every one of those qualifications are things that Christians are called to, and when it comes to maturity in a man's life, then he's qualified to be an elder. One expression of mature Christianity is hospitable, open-handed with resources, open door with the home that God has given you.
Okay, so you all practice hospitality. I've experienced it in your house. So tell us about how it works.
Well, I just think it's a combination of things, but it's partly just a natural outflow of our family. At the same time, it's intentional. Uh, but if you're feeding your family and everybody's sitting down to dinner every night, we don't make a spectacle out of dinner. Sometimes the younger ones, especially, they love to have candles and things like that. And I don't know if we've done that for hospitality, but then, I don't know. I've always been, and Val's always been just kind of geared towards reaching out and picking up strays and that kind of thing. So we've always been having people over at our house. And when we had children, we had families that age. Somebody's got to be the person that does it. You can sit around and say, well, there's nothing going on, or you could be the person that makes something go on. And you can say, well, nobody's ever inviting us over to dinner. Or you can just say, we'll invite everybody else over to dinner. I think one time when we were actually pastoring a small church with a couple other men, we made a commitment one year to have everybody in the church over to our house. I don't know if we actually reached that goal or not, but that was our goal. Just knowing that there were some people that we hadn't had over. So yeah, I can't really tell you exactly how. We've just always done it to one extent or another. Sometimes it's been easy and a delight. Other times, sometimes it feels like work. But the Bible does command us to do that, and we have many examples from Old and New Testament of people showing hospitality to one another. God is a good father, and he's created a very hospitable world for us. Springtime, we get to see it, just how good he is, with all the fruit trees beginning to bloom and all the time to get in the garden and plant. He's provided everything we need. So um, in following his example, we can share those blessings with other people.
So when I talked to your pastor, he said, "Hey, if they come on, make sure you get a daughter of theirs or two on, because they're right in the thick of all that is happening with our hospitality." So Summer, maybe you could just describe what a normal night of hospitality is and what you'd be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think lately we've had a lot of people over on Sunday afternoon, just after church, and really a lot of new people, like Dad was saying. Just we've had a lot of people visiting our church, and so we'll have new people over, and I think that's really a great way. I think it's been amazing with the new people, just because it's not like they're just church friends or people you see at church. Like, they become more closer friends, and more like brothers and sisters in Christ when you're fellowshipping with them. Um, but really, I mean, there's a lot of us. There's 5 girls at home right now, so uh, we're kind of at a different season than a lot of people, maybe that have little kids or whatever. So we kind of all
Did we lose one?
lose one. What?
A girl? I think there's 6, but that's all right.
Oh yeah, well, 5 others besides me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big families can lose one. Go ahead.
We all kind of
We left one in the park. A couple of weeks ago. We'll call when we're done with the podcast.
Summer, it's interesting you use the word brother. You mentioned you had that kind of terminology. That's really the language of the Bible. There are different imageries of the church: a temple, a body, a family. But the whole, imagery of brother, sister is the most prominent metaphor for the church, mentioned like over 250 times. And so that's what you're talking about, is creating a family kind of relationship with an extended family.
So I used to work in electronics. We had something called an attach rate, and it had to do with, if you sold this one product, how many of this other kind of product would go along with it? How often would you also sell the other product? So just in terms of local church, it's so valuable to have families thinking like, Gil, what you are articulating, because churches have visitors. How many of them stick? Well, there's a couple of answers to that question. There's one answer to that question if nobody really takes an interest in them. There's a very different answer to that question numerically if somebody who's friendly says, "Hey, you guys do anything for lunch? You want to come join us after the service?" Most people don't have it planned out after the service and are happy to come over. And that just is a totally different kind of first encounter with any church.
What do you think some of the barriers are for people, who are reluctant to practice hospitality?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, the time of life that you're in, I think is definitely, or you may think that your resources are not good enough. Um, or I think a danger probably is comparing to other people. And we've done that before. Just, you see people that maybe they're richer than you, or maybe, they're at a different time in life where they have tons of time to prepare and, have fancy table settings or whatever. Um, but I think that's the wrong way to look at it, to compare with other people. You should be taking the resources that you have and just be faithful in that however you can. Um,
Yeah. We've done, we've had big events where we had, several families or lots of families, for Fourth of July or Thanksgiving, Reformation Day, something like that. We invited the people that bought our house, the ladies that bought our last house when we moved to Thanksgiving, because we knew they moved to town and they didn't know anybody here. And then other times, on Sunday afternoons, Dad just gets restless and invites a couple people. Maybe we're giving his wife a hint, or maybe not. And we just throw, and they say, "Well, hey, what can we bring?" Well, hey, run over and pick up some fried chicken, or pick up this or that, and we've got this already, and we just throw it together. But yeah, so many people, I've even told people when they've said to me, when they've complained to me, "Well, I went to this church for so many years and nobody ever invited us over or did this or that." And I said, "Well, did you ever invite them over?" "Well, no."
Awkward silence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
That's not my calling, right?
yeah. Our family's been known to roll out sloppy joes and tater tots without apology because honestly, most people just value being together. And they're not waiting for a steak dinner. They'd rather, come over soon and have sloppy joes and tater tots rather than to wait a year or two and get their steak dinner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think another thing I was thinking about was just the size of your home, and I think that's a lot of an excuse that I hear often, and that we've made before too. Um, but we have a friend in our church who's a single girl and lives in an apartment, and she invited us over, our whole family over, so like 9 of us.
A little apartment.
A very small apartment, and there was hardly room for, I mean, some of us were sitting on the ground, and she didn't even have enough seats in the house for all of us, but we had a great time, and none of us cared that we were sitting on the ground. Like, we just be there and fellowship with her. Um, and I thought that was a great example of just like, you don't have to wait until you have a bigger house. You can use what you have, and people will be happy with that. Or even, if you have an outside, like, have people over for a campfire or something, and you don't have to be inside if you don't have space or whatever.
It really is a matter of obedience. We can say, well, if this is just a side dish, then it's a choice. But there's commands in the Bible that command us to do it, and to do and commands that assume actually that it's not natural to everybody. And it wasn't like maybe or maybe not. Those people in the first century were more used to doing it. I don't know. Uh, but even if they were, there were some people that still drug their feet, because Paul says, to do it without grumbling, do this thing joyfully, because the Lord's given to you. You give, and we had to be commanded to do it. Because those things don't, just like we're commanded to love. It really is a practical outworking of brotherly love, um, in the church. And um, I think I've got written here where it was Tertullian that said that even the pagans had to admit, see how they love one another, and how ready they are to lay down their lives for one another. When he saw their lifestyle, they're sharing meals from house to house, the things you see in Acts, praying for one another, giving to one another, caring for one another. And that reminds me, of that story, which I know you all know, of the pilgrims. When they came over that first year, they were sick, and the sailors that stayed in the ship in the harbor were sick as well. But the sailors were cussing one another and were ready to just throw each other overboard, so that they wouldn't spread measles or whatever they had around, flu. And when they saw the pilgrims loving one another and caring for one another, and even coming over and caring for the sailors at the risk of their own health, they were amazed, and they said, "We treat each other like dogs, but look how these saints, care for one another." Well, that's what Jesus told us, wasn't it? They will know that you're my disciples because you love one another. So it has to come out our fingers and our toes. Love has to look like something. I can't just say, be warm and be fed, brother. I have I have I have fuzzy feelings for you in my heart, not in my fingers, right?
Yeah.
So that's one way that that everybody can do. It doesn't matter what your gifting is. You may not be a great preacher, or you may not think you're as gifted as other people, but everybody can share their home and their time and their life and a little bit of food with somebody else. If you don't have enough money, well, just get everybody, have a potluck. Who said you have to spend $1,000 on a meal?
Or 100 or 50.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Make it work.
Yeah. So a great book on the topic by Alexander Strauch, The Hospitality Commands. Gil, it's just to your point, there are actually commands. We are commanded to be hospitable to one another. This book won't take you 2 hours to read. Definitely you can have it read and back on the shelf in less than 2 hours, but it's so practical, and he just goes from New Testament text to New Testament text that talk about hospitality. So for pastors who are watching, get a box of these and pass it out to your people. It is contagious. You really do need an anchor family like the Arterburns, like you and your family, Gil. And sometimes it takes a while to spread, but hospitality is contagious. Over time, churches build a culture of hospitality where more and more people want to be a part of that.
Amen. Well, may the Arterburns tribe increase all over the country. May hospitality be cranked up in the churches. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Summer. All right. And thank you for joining us on the Church and Family Life podcast, and we hope you can join us next time.
Church and Family Life is proclaiming the sufficiency of Scripture by helping build strong families and strong churches. If you found this resource helpful, we encourage you to check out churchandfamilylife.com.